Hello and welcome to the Parent Engagement Series, where we empower parents to support their children's education in meaningful and effective ways. I'm your host, Rosa Kemirembe, and today's topic is one that resonates with every parent: homework without headaches. We all want our children to succeed in school. But how can we help them with homework without turning it into a nightly battle? How much homework is too much? And how can we ensure our kids are learning effectively without burning out? Let's dive in. Let's start by talking about the value of homework. Homework is not about keeping children busy. It's about reinforcing what they've learned in class. It helps them review and practice concepts so that they can move from their short-term memory to their long-term understanding. But here's something important. Homework doesn't have to be given every day to be effective. In fact, research shows that daily homework isn't always necessary, especially for younger children. Homework is most valuable when it's purposeful, when it helps students review and understand concepts, not just memorize them through rote repetition. For example, instead of assigning 20 math problems every single night, a teacher might assign 5 problems that require critical thinking and application of concepts. If I give a student 5 problems, it's enough for me to be able to understand whether they get a concept, whether they have a full understanding of a concept or not. I don't have to let them go through 20 to be able to look at their work and figure out, yes, this student understands, or no, they don't understand. This kind of homework encourages deeper understanding, not just repetition. Now let's get into the science behind homework and the brain. The brain is like a sponge. Even sponges have limits. When we learn something new, our brains process and store that information in a part called the hippocampus. Over time, with practice and review, that information moves to the prefrontal cortex of your brain, where it becomes long-term memory. But here's the catch. The brain can only handle so much at once. When children are overloaded with information, whether it's too much homework or too many tasks, their brains can experience cognitive overload. This happens when the working memory, which is responsible for holding and processing information, gets overwhelmed. When cognitive overload happens, the brain struggles to retain and to recall information. This is why cramming for exams or spending hours and hours and hours on homework without breaks is ineffective. The brain needs time to process and consolidate what it's learned. It does that when you give it short spurts of breaks in between your learning. Additionally, stress also plays a big role. When children feel pressured or anxious or worried about homework, their brains release a chemical called cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone that actually blocks learning. So the more stressed your children are, the less they're going to learn. This is why balance is so important. Homework should challenge students, but it should not overwhelm them. Now let's talk about setting up a homework-friendly environment at home. Whether it's the kitchen table or a home office, here's what you need. 1, you need a dedicated space. Choose a quiet, well-lit area free from distractions like television or loud conversations. Secondly, you need to have supplies on hand. Keep pencils, paper, calculators, and other tools nearby so your child doesn't waste time looking for them, and make sure you always have a good supply of pencils and paper and any scholastic materials that you need always on hand. Timing also matters. Decide if your child needs a break after school before diving into homework. Younger kids especially may need time to play or rest before focusing on their homework. So how much homework is appropriate? Here's a quick guide. If a child is in nursery or kindergarten to P2, 10 to 20 minutes per day, focusing on reading and simple activities. If they're grade 3 or P3 to P5, they need about 30 minutes to 1 hour per day. This is when homework starts to include math problems, reading, and short projects. If they're in grade 6 or P6 to P7, 60 to 90 minutes per day. Homework becomes more complex at this stage, but balance is still very important and key at this stage. If they're in high school, about 90 to 120 minutes per day. And maybe if you're an older student in high school, you could probably do up to 180 minutes a day. Okay, because older students can handle more, but they still need time for rest. They still need hobbies, and they still need time with their families. Remember, these are just guidelines, okay? So every child is different. Some kids can handle a little bit more time of homework, and some children can't. Okay, so you have to know your child and gauge your child. If your child is struggling to finish with these time frames, it's okay to adjust or talk to their teacher for further help. Now let's talk about breaks and study skills. Studies show that the brain can only focus for a certain amount of time before it needs a break. For younger kids, that's about 15 to 20 minutes. For older kids, about 30 to 45 minutes or an hour. So encourage your child to take a 5 to 10 minute break after each study session. Whether their study session is 30 minutes or an hour, let them take a break, a 5 to 10 minute break halfway through. They can stretch, grab a snack, or just take a quick walk. This helps their brain recharge. And here's a tip for smarter studying. Teach your child to study smart, not just hard. For example, break the information that they're learning into smaller, manageable pieces. Chunking their work. That's what we call it, chunking. Teach them to test themselves on what they've learned, or you can test them on what they've learned as a parent, instead of just rereading notes over and over and over again. How do we know that they're understanding those notes? We'll figure that out when they're able to answer questions based on what they're reading. Review material. Help your children to review material over several days instead of just cramming the night before the exam or the test is about to take place. One of the most effective strategies is having your child explain their thinking to you. Ask them, why is this answer right? Or why do you think it's wrong? This forces them to articulate their understanding, which strengthens their learning. As parents, please understand that your role is not to do the homework for your child, but your role as a parent is to guide and support them. Here's how you can do that. You can be a cheerleader. Praise their effort, not just the results. Ask them questions. What did you learn today? Not, how was school? Or, can you explain this to me? Stay calm. If they're struggling, take a deep breath and help them problem solve. Communicate with teachers if homework is consistently too hard or too much. always take time to reach out to the school. And here's an important tip. If your child doesn't understand the homework and you can't explain it either, don't stress. Send it back to school with a note asking the teacher to reteach the concept or provide additional guidance. Homework is meant to review what's been taught, not to introduce new material that parents have to teach their kids. So homework doesn't have to be a headache. By creating the right environment, setting realistic expectations, and teaching smart study skills, you can help your child thrive without overwhelming them. Remember, education is a journey. It's not a race. Let's give our children the tools they need to succeed while also allowing them to be kids. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Parent Engagement Series. If you found this helpful, share it with other parents and subscribe for more tips on supporting your child's education. Until next time, take care and happy parenting.